Let's start this topic with a big idea. Animal classification is not just about names. It is about tracing a structural journey from simpler body plans to highly organized vertebrates. Hemichordates sit close to that transition zone, and chordates take the blueprint one step further. Keep that evolution path in mind because this entire topic becomes much easier once you see it as a progression of body features rather than a list of groups. One small trap here is to confuse close relatives with true members of a group. That distinction matters a lot in exams. Hemichordates are interesting because they were once placed closer to chordates, but later their true identity became clearer. Their body is divided into proboscis, collar, and trunk, and that division itself is a useful exam clue. The real standout feature is the proboscis gland, which acts as the excretory organ, while respiration happens through gill slits. They are marine, worm-like, and bilaterally symmetrical, so do not let the old classification mislead you. A common trap is thinking the stomochord is a notochord. It looks similar, but it is not a true notochord. Chordates are defined by a very specific embryonic blueprint. And once you lock in those four features, the rest becomes much easier. The notochord is the support rod. The dorsal hollow nerve cord is the central wiring. Pharyngeal gill slits handle respiration or filtration in early stages. And the post-anal tail extends beyond the anus. These are the identity markers of chordates. So memorizing them as a set is far more powerful than learning them separately. The exam trick is to remember the exact wording. The nerve cord is dorsal, hollow, and single. A clean comparison between chordates and non-chordates saves a lot of confusion later. In chordates, the notochord is present, the nerve cord is dorsal and hollow, gill slits are present in the pharynx, the heart is ventral, and a post-anal tail exists at some stage. In non-chordates, those features are absent or arranged differently, with a ventral, solid, double nerve cord and typically no post-anal tail. The little line about humans having a ventral heart and insects having a dorsal one is a neat memory anchor, so keep it handy. Protochordates are the marine chordates that help connect the simpler forms to vertebrates, and their real story is about what happens to the notochord. In Urochordates, the notochord is present only in the larval tail, which is a classic exam point. In Cephalochordates, it extends from head to tail and stays throughout life, making them very useful for understanding the basic chordate body plan. A clever shortcut is hidden in the names. Uro points to the tail and Cephalo points to the head. That naming clue can save time under pressure. Vertebrates begin where the chordate plan gets upgraded with a real backbone. The key idea here is simple. All vertebrates are chordates, but not all chordates become vertebrates. The notochord appears in the embryo, but vertebrates go on to form a vertebral column around the spinal cord. They also gain a muscular ventral heart, kidneys for excretion and osmoregulation, and paired appendages for movement. A very common exam trap is to assume protochordates also develop the vertebral column. They do not. This is the map that keeps the rest of vertebrate classification organized. Vertebrates split into agnatha and gnathostomata, which is really a division based on the presence or absence of jaws. From there, jawed vertebrates branch into fishes and tetrapods. And that is where the major body form changes start becoming obvious. Think of this slide as the skeleton of the entire chapter. If you remember this tree, the individual classes become much easier to place. It is worth pausing here and mentally fixing the sequence before moving deeper. Cyclostomata are the jawless vertebrates, and their body plan is very distinctive. They have a circular sucking mouth, no jaws, no scales, and paired fins are absent. Their gill slits are numerous, and they are parasitic or scavenging in lifestyle, which fits their specialized mouth structure. Lampreys and hagfish are the standard examples, so those names should come instantly to mind. One exam point that is often tested is their anadromous migration. They live in the sea but move to fresh water for breeding. Chondrichthyes are the cartilaginous fishes, and their body design is all about efficient swimming and predatory adaptation. The skeleton is cartilaginous, the mouth is ventral, and the gill slits are separate because there is no operculum. Their skin carries placoid scales, which are modified in a way that often gets tested. They also lack an air bladder, so continuous swimming helps prevent sinking. Fertilization is internal, and many are viviparous, which is a useful contrast point against bony fishes. The male claspers are an easy detail to miss, so that is worth remembering. Osteichthyes are the bony fishes, and the easiest way to remember them is through the contrast with cartilaginous fishes. Their skeleton is bony, the mouth is terminal, and the gills are covered by an operculum. The presence of an air bladder is a major advantage because it helps in buoyancy control, which is why many of them can hold position more easily in water. Their scales are cycloid or ctenoid, and most are oviparous with external fertilization. When exams ask you to compare fish groups, the operculum and air bladder are usually the fastest differentiators. This comparison table is exactly the kind of thing that helps in rapid revision. Cartilaginous fishes have a cartilaginous skeleton, ventral mouth, no operculum, placoid scales, no air bladder, and internal fertilization with viviparity in many cases. Bony fishes show the opposite pattern in most of these features. Bony skeleton, terminal mouth, operculum present, cycloid or ctenoid scales, air bladder present, and external fertilization with oviparity. A classic exam trap is mixing up sinkers and floaters, so the buoyancy clue is worth locking in. Amphibians are the bridge between aquatic and terrestrial life, and that bridge role is the whole reason they matter in evolution. Their skin is moist and without scales. Their eyes have eyelids, and the tympanum acts as the ear region. Respiration is flexible, using gills, lungs, and even skin depending on the stage and species. Reproduction is usually external, and they are cold-blooded, so they depend heavily on environmental conditions. The cloaca is another feature that shows up repeatedly in exam questions, so keep it in focus. Heart evolution is one of the best ways to see the rise in complexity across vertebrates. Fishes generally have a two-chambered heart. Amphibians move to a three-chambered heart, and the next stage leads toward a four-chambered heart in higher vertebrates. That progression is not just about chamber count. It reflects a more efficient separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. The thermal point is also important here. Fishes and amphibians are poikilothermic, so they do not maintain a constant internal body temperature. That detail often appears as a straightforward but tricky MCQ. For a quick final check, this is the kind of recall that should come to mind instantly. Water vascular system belongs to echinoderms. Stomochord points to hemichordates. No operculum with placoid scales points to chondrichthyes. Air bladder with terminal mouth points to osteichthyes. And cloaca presence helps identify amphibians in this set. By this stage, the logic of classification should feel less like memorization and more like pattern recognition. Hold on to the sequence, trust the trait-based comparisons, and you are ready to tackle this topic with confidence in the exam. Start by anchoring the two phyla in your mind. Hemichordata and Chordata may look close at a glance, but the key divider is segmentation. Hemichordates have a worm-like body with proboscis, collar, and trunk, and segmentation is absent, while chordates show segmentation and the classic chordate blueprint. A useful exam insight here is that both groups still share complete digestion, circulation, and respiration. So the question is never about life processes, but about structural organization. That distinction becomes the foundation for everything that follows. Reptiles are best remembered as the scaled, dry-skin vertebrates built for a more terrestrial style of life. Their skin is cornified. They lack external ear openings, and the tympanum functions as the ear region. Movement is usually creeping or crawling, and when limbs are present, they always occur in two pairs. The trap to avoid is assuming all reptiles have obvious limbs or outer ears. The group is defined more by body covering and ear anatomy than by casual appearance. Reptiles have a few high-yield exceptions that examiners love. The standard reptile heart is three-chambered, but crocodiles break the pattern with a four-chambered heart, which makes them the classic exception. Another important feature is epidermal shedding, especially in snakes and lizards, where the skin is cast off periodically. Once you remember 3 chambers in reptiles, 4 in crocodiles, the rest of the classification becomes much easier to handle under pressure. Birds are a major leap in adaptation, and feathers remain their defining identity marker. They possess a beak instead of teeth, forelimbs are modified into wings, and the hind limbs are scaled and specialized for walking, swimming, or grasping branches. Their skin is dry and lacks glands, except for the oil gland at the base of the tail. A common exam mistake is forgetting that feathers are the defining trait, while the beak and wing modifications are secondary but equally important clues. Birds are not just about external features. Their internal design is just as specialized. Their skeleton is fully ossified, and the long bones are hollow with air spaces. A clever adaptation that reduces weight. Digestion is assisted by the crop for storage and the gizzard for grinding, while respiration is powered by lungs plus air sacs for continuous airflow. Reproduction is also streamlined. Sexes are separate, fertilization is internal, development is direct, and eggs are laid. The overall theme is efficiency for flight and high metabolic demand. Mammals are easy to identify once the core markers are fixed. Mammary glands, hair, external ears or pinnae, and heterodont teeth. These features separate them from the other vertebrate classes very cleanly. The limbs are typically two pairs and are highly adapted for different modes of movement, such as running, climbing, burrowing, swimming, or flying. The strongest exam cue here is the combination of hair plus mammary glands. Those two together instantly point to mammals. Mammals are mostly viviparous, which means live birth is the rule rather than the exception. Even so, the platypus stands out as the classic oviparous exception, and that is exactly why it is so frequently tested. What makes the platypus especially tricky is that it still has hair and mammary glands, so it remains a true mammal even though it lays eggs. This is one of those details that can turn a direct question into an easy mark if you remember it clearly. Thermoregulation marks a major evolutionary divide. Reptiles are poikilotherms, meaning they depend on the environment for body temperature, while birds and mammals are homoiotherms, able to maintain a constant internal temperature. That difference is more than terminology. It reflects a major shift in physiological control and energy expenditure. A simple way to lock it in is this. Reptiles are cold-blooded, whereas birds and mammals are warm-blooded. That contrast shows up again and again in objective questions. Heart evolution ties the whole vertebrate story together beautifully. Reptiles generally have a three-chambered heart. Crocodiles again stand out as the exception with four chambers. And birds plus mammals possess a fully four-chambered heart. This is not just a chamber count issue. It reflects increasing separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, which supports higher metabolic efficiency. The evolutionary bridge is important here because crocodiles are the outlier that sits between the reptilian pattern and the advanced vertebrate condition. This comparison matrix is exactly what you want in your revision notebook. Reptiles have dry, cornified scales, a three-chambered heart, poikilothermy, a tympanum without pinnae, and mostly oviparous direct development. Birds have dry skin with feathers, a four-chambered heart, homoiothermy, tympanum only, and oviparous direct development. Mammals show hair, a four-chambered heart, homoiothermy, external ears, and mostly viviparous direct development. The fastest exam strategy is to compare one row at a time rather than trying to memorize all three classes at once. Scientific names for reptiles often appear in matching questions, so the cluster approach helps a lot. Chilone and testudo belong to turtles and tortoises. Chameleon, calotes, and hemidactylus represent lizards. Crocodilus and alligator are the crocodilian names. And Naja, Bangarus, and Vipera fit into poisonous snakes. A neat memory trick is to group them by body type rather than treat them as random Latin words. That way, even if the question is phrased indirectly, the classification still comes back quickly. The naming pattern continues in birds and mammals. And once again, the goal is recognition through association. Corvus is crow. Columba is pigeon. Psittacula is parrot. Struthio is ostrich. Pavo is peacock. Aptenodytes is penguin. And Neophron is vulture. Among mammals, Macropus is kangaroo. Pteropus is flying fox. Camelus is camel. Macaca is monkey. Rattus is rat. Canis is dog. Felis is cat. Elephas is elephant. Equus is horse. Delphinus is common dolphin. Balanoptera is blue whale. And Panthera tigris is tiger. These are the kinds of pairings that become instant marks once you see them enough times. Pulling everything together, the evolutionary path becomes very clear. Chordates form the foundation. Reptiles mark the move into stronger terrestrial adaptation. Birds refine flight and thermal independence. And mammals represent the apex system of internal regulation and specialization. The recurring theme is progressive upgrade, especially in heart structure, body covering, and temperature control. The final exam mindset should be sharp on exceptions like crocodiles and platypus, because those are exactly the details that separate recall from real understanding. If you can track the pattern of upgrades and remember the exceptions, this topic will be on your fingertips.